You see how lovely and fluid that's getting? Looks like a very loose Vaseline here. Which you kind of see, right? You get it? All right. I'm going to stop bringing it up. I'm like beating a dead horse at this point. I hear you. I'm trying to tell you that I'm sorry. Welcome back, friends. Or if you're new here, hey. It is Lauren, the Soap Witch, and in this little happy corner of these here internets, this is where I play in my hair, mix up my magical potions, or even go rogue on a recipe. Yes, I even make magic in the kitchen. And today, we make it magic with soap. A lovely little delectable smelling morsel of Dragonfruit Sangria scented soap. So here, I am measuring out oils. I usually skip this part. I don't skip it, obviously, but I don't show it in the videos, what I'm saying. But today I didn't, and it allotted me a little time to get a little intro in. Yay me. Okay, so pouring in the oils or dumping them in if they're hard oils, and melted them. And now I'm measuring out my aloe vera juice. And then I'm adding in some sodium lactate, which helps for a harder bar and also keeps the soap more fluid during the cook. And I'm also adding my sugar, also helps to keep the soap more fluid during the cook and helps the end result be a little bit more bubbly. So I pour those in before I add my lye, and I like to give them a nice stir to get it all dissolved before I add the lye. Also, I don't like to add anything after I add the lye because I'm going to go straight from lye to pouring it in the lye solution, I should say, to pouring it in the oil so it'll be as hot as possible. So I'm going to try to throw in some tips on how to just get a delectably really loose fluid soap in here. Because I get a lot of comments on people thinking that I have a super or one of the more fluid soaps they've ever seen. So hot processed soaps, I should say. So you saw me measure out the lye, add the lye to the aloe vera juice mixture, and we just gonna stir that up so it's not as like cloudy, milky looking. It's never gonna be clear. Nothing gets clear like water, but just till it's not as milky. So I like for my oils to be at least 200 degrees when I add the lye, and I make sure just pretty much as soon as I'm done stirring the lye, I add them to the hot oils, and then we immediately commence to stick blending. So I like the oils to be in the lyes to be at those temperatures because I feel like it makes the cook take less time. And so that's the method to my madness. So you're just going to watch me stick blend this to within an inch of its life, because we're going to stick blend this pretty much to completion. And you'll just see me go through the phases of, just emulsion and trace. That looks kind of tracy right there. That used to just be where I would put the lid on the pot and wait out for a volcano, but we just stick blend right past that now. And one of the things I do want to point out is the size of your pot, or the ratio of size of your pot to how much mixture you have in the pot does matter. If your pot is significantly bigger than your mixture, too much fluid or liquid will evaporate and your soap will be less fluid. You can combat that if you only have one size pot by putting saran wrap over the top, and not doing this method, but just when you get the trays, put some saran wrap on top, putting the lid on and letting it cook, and kind of stirring and stick blending in between the cook. But the saran wrap does help to keep in some of that fluid if you need that. I just have different size pots for different size batches. As you can see here, I have stick blended past the part where it kind of looked like it was separating. It even looked like it was boiling and bubbling. You want that. Don't be scared of that. I used to be scared of that. So here we're seeing a wonderful volcano. That is one of my favorite parts of doing fluid hot process. That's what this is. I didn't say that at the beginning. Fluid hot process. There's another name for it that I'm blanking on right now. But yeah, it's when you do your hot process at really high temps. I actually use the same recipe that I used to use for my cold process soaps. Yeah, so here I just stick blended and it just volcanoed regardless, and you see it's still kind of bubbly. That means it's hot. It means it's cooking. That means it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Okay, you get the picture. So now I'm just going to stir it to within an inch of its life, because we've just gotten to that point where that's what we're gonna do. So I like to whisk it good. Okay, so we're gonna whisk this through all of the phases. We whisked it from the phase you just saw. We whisk it through the applesauce looking phase. We whisk it through the done looking phase. When it starts looking done is when it starts to darken a bit in color, start to have that shiny, smooth, very together type look. It's not grainy, and I'm gonna sound like a little weirdo, but it has a certain smell. I know. Unfortunately, I cannot describe what that smell is except for Done soap. I'm sorry. Okay. Anywho, we're just gonna continue to stir this to within an inch of its life. So anyway, make sure that you are being conscious of the size of the pot in comparison to the amount of, your soap batter, or what will be your soap batter. Here you see it is 1 and 2 volcano out of the pot. We don't like that around here, but we're gonna stir it right into submission, whisk it into submission until it decides to behave and go back in there where it belongs. Thank you very much. So it does start to have a very smooth look, less grainy, and it moves from that grainy look to the mashed potato look to the very done, close to Vaseline look. It does start to darken. It looks smoother. It looks shinier. It's probably hard to see some of this stuff in the video, but when you're cooking it yourself, if you're a soap maker, whatever, you'll notice those things. I like to take the mess and just scoop it back into the pot, because that's just what I like to do. Okay, so this soap is pretty much here on the verge of doneness. I'm just stirring for my health now, but you can absolutely see it is coming together there, looking very Vaseline-like instead of the previous stages of whatever those were. I like the cute little names that previous soapers came up with for the different stages, but they do look like, what they are. So here I am just measuring out yogurt, yet another ingredient that helps to keep the soap fluid. So I measured it out, and I'm just gonna unceremoniously dump it in the pot, and then I'm gonna take my whisk and whisk it to death. Again, I want to make sure it all gets fully incorporated. You see how lovely and fluid that's getting? Looks like a very loose Vaseline here, which you gotta see, right? You get it? All right, I'm gonna stop bringing it up. I'm like beating a dead horse at this point. I hear you. I'm trying to tell you that I'm sorry. So anywho, I switch hands because this is like 10 pounds of soap, and my arms get tired. Call me a little weakling. All right, so while I let that sit and marinate, I'm gonna measure out that delectable, incredible, wonderful smell and fragrance. Oh, it smells so good. It smells so good. Okay, and then I'm gonna add my colorant. I love Mad Micas. This one is Voodoo. It's a pinkish color, and I like to add it to oils. I have some oils that are just reserved from the oil that is already in the recipe, because I don't want to add any different oils to the recipe. That would be silly. So add that mica powder into the oil, give it a stir. I'm going in with some activated charcoal here because that's the color that I like to use to make black in my soaps. It's hard to go wrong with it. It can be really messy and gross though, and stick everywhere. So does this titanium dioxide. It's what I prefer to use for white soap, but oh my God, I don't like it by itself. That powder, oh my God, it sticks to everything. Okay, I'm done complaining about the colorants, my bad. So stirring it all together. So now that I've let that marinate while I got all the rest of my stuff for the final touches together, I'm going to dump my fragrance in there and give it a hefty little stir. And I do stir this into within an inch of its life, and this is where I broke like my second or third whisk. At this point I'm throwing a fit, but you can't hear me. It's probably for the best anyway. So I'm gonna whisk that to an inch of its life, because I feel like when I don't whisk it thoroughly enough, I end up with like loose fragrance at the bottom of the pot that's not mixed into the soap. I'm not really a fan of that. I don't know why that keeps happening. It upsets me. Anywho, the obsessive stirring cures that nonsense. And so that's what we're doing. Also, I just like stirring. Okay, so I'm going to dump. I'm actually weighing it out so I know how much I'm putting in the big pail bucket. And then I'm going to add my pink colorant in there. I stir in circles, but then I also stir like kind of in a downward scooping motion. I guess it's an upward scooping motion actually. I want to make sure I'm bringing the soap all the way down from the bottom to the top, etc., because it's fluid, but it's still not cold processed, so it's not that loose. So I just want to make sure that I'm getting all of the soap incorporated and colored so that I don't have little bits of non-colored soap in there, because it's not cute. Ask me how I know. All right, so measuring out my next bit and really just doing the exact same thing you just saw me do, measuring it out, adding the color, doing my little doop-de-doop swirly scoopy stir there just to make sure that all of the soap gets colored. I do actually have measurements that I use to like weigh out how much color or how much I want each color to have, if that makes any sense. I get a bit OCD. This is one of the only times I'm ever organized in my life. Have I mentioned I really like making soap? Okay. So yeah, I don't know if I have any other tips for keeping the soap super fluid. But definitely the size of the pot does matter, and making sure you actually are accurate with the measurements of your liquid, because a few times I've done it where I kind of let it only happens with beer soap actually, where I let it get too fluid. No, that's wrong. I let too much evaporate. That's what it was. Because I kind of leave it sitting around for a bit, open to, because I don't boil my beer. This is really off topic, kind of, sort of, and I know that's sacrilege, but I don't follow directions. Like, once I learn the rules, I keep the ones that I feel like matter. I throw the rest of the ones out. Okay, sorry. Anyway, so yeah, making sure that your liquid measurements are actually correct to your recipe does matter. This is me just doing the pour. I figure you knew that, but just explaining. I didn't do a hanger swirl in this one. So I'm just holding the containers with the colorants kind of high over the molds just to kind of get the colors to sink down and mesh with each other. And then I slam the molds onto the table to also kind of get them to just gel with each other so that they're, immersed together. I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying? Hopefully. So anyway, the pouring and all that stuff. That's where we are. I have found that layering lots of layers of color make for a prettier soap, at least in my opinion. I just made some soaps just recently because I like making soap. Don't know if I mentioned that. And I did find that kind of the more layers that I poured, even if it's just two different colors, it just makes for like a prettier, I don't know, dynamic. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here, but it looks nicer. All right. So maybe contrast. I really like things that contrast, and it gives more of that when you kind of layer a lot of layers together. Okay, so anyway, now I'm just beating a dead horse. Again, I'm trying to tell you that I'm sorry. Stop me, someone. Okay, so now that we're done pouring excessively, I like to do glitter, because I'm a glittery soap witch, okay? And so I have found that putting the glitter on before I swirl the tops actually helps the glitter to like combine into the soap, and it doesn't just fly off and fall off, because that's messy and annoying. And so that's why I do it this way now. And this is the finished pretty tops of the soap. So lovely. I felt like you needed a close-up, so there we go. I'm a fan. Okay, so I usually freeze these in the molds for like 5-ish hours. I take them out the mold while they're frozen, and I cut them when they thawed out, or I'll break my soap cutter. So here's the first cut. Pretty. Okay. And then in between cuts, I like to take a paper towel and wipe off the wire, or it will drag all the residue through the next slices. You don't want that. So then I move the whole loaf over, and just rinse, repeat a bunch of times. So anyway, that's pretty much it. Here's a few cuts that I thought were pretty. And if you're interested in getting a bar, I do have a link below in the description for this soap. So that's about all for this one. And if you like the special brand of sorcery that I brought to these here internets, please subscribe to my channel and like this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye.